All right, for the next few examples, examples 4 and 5, we're going to start off with the same steps. Okay, so remember the first thing that we are going to do is you're going to factor. Anything that can be factored, factor it. I would even start on the easiest one. Notice that this in your denominator, you just have one that has a greatest common factor. Always look for that first. See if you can see if there's any number that will divide into both terms. Now, in this case, 8 actually will divide into 8 itself and into 32. So we're going to factor or undistribute our 8. 8 times r gives me 8r, and then 8 times 4 is going to give me that 32 right there. Okay, I kind of cross it out to remind myself, now this denominator looks like this. It's the same thing, we just rewrote it in a form that's going to help us to simplify here pretty quick. Notice in the top right up here, this can actually also have a common factor factored out. All of these numbers, this 2r squared, this 2r, this 40, they can be divided by 2 as well. So I'm going to go ahead and factor out that 2 from all of my terms. I cannot factor out any letters. I can't factor an r out because I don't have an r down here on the 40, but factor out that 2. So you're left with r squared minus 1r minus 20. We're just going to divide all those numbers by 2. And then I'm actually going to go one step farther. We're going to scoot up just a little because this lovely trinomial, 1, 2, 3 terms, I can factor that as well into 2 binomials. Just like our last example, remember your first times your first wants to multiply to this r squared. We're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to negative 20, but add to negative 1. So 1 and 20, nope, too big. 2 and 10, too big. 3 doesn't divide into 20, but 4 and 5, those are our numbers that we want. Now this time, because it's a negative 1r, I want my negative number to be, or my negative sign to be with the biggest number. That 5 wants to be with the negative. So then when I add 4, I still have a negative number. Okay, so this, again, just another fancy way of writing that. So we now go through and see what can cancel out. Again, it says to simplify monomials first. I don't. Monomials are one terms. I kind of leave those to last because I think these binomials are easiest to simplify. There's an r plus 4 on the top, r plus 4 on the bottom. Then what I do is I rewrite the problem so I can see it a little bit better. So I'm left with 2 in the top and an r minus 5 in the top over just an 8 in the denominator. Now your monomials, I look at my monomials last actually, and I say, okay, there is a number 2 divides into both of those. This is 2 times 1, this is 2 times 8. So you can just divide them both by 2, and that goes to a 4. So you've got an r minus 5 in the numerator over 4 right there. All right, now this next lovely step right here, if you have an a minus b, now these aren't really going to be a minus b, it'll be like x minus 4 and 4 minus x right here. It'll be, let me just write that down, x minus 4 and 4 minus x. Do not cancel these out. These do not divide to 1. They are actually a little bit different, but not too different. Right here, we could actually rewrite this as a minus b over negative b plus, oops, sorry. We're not trying to change signs. We're trying to write the a first. That's what I'm trying to do. So notice my a is negative, so I've got a negative a plus b. Now, in order for these to cancel out, they've got to be the exact same. However, we can write them the same if, look at your denominator, if you factor out a negative 1 here, let's factor out this negative 1, then notice negative 1 times a gives me a negative a, and a negative a minus b gives me that positive b right there. So now I can actually cancel this a minus b, can cancel with this a minus b here, and I'm just left with 1 over negative 1, which equals negative 1. Okay, so if they are different, if they're the same numbers but just in a different order, you can cancel it to a negative 1. Okay, you don't even need the a's and the b's in there. It's just negative 1. That's just kind of a shortcut that's going to help us right here. So let's go ahead and look at this example 5 here using what we remember that they are -1. So this is my favorite type of polynomial to factor. It is called a difference, see the subtract, of squares. That means your first term is a square, that p is squared. This 49 is also a square. It is just 7 squared. When this happens, we can factor this as what we call conjugates. That just means that we've got binomials that have different operations. This is a plus, this is a subtract. Okay, all you do is take the square root of the first. So p squared, that's easy. That tells me it's just p squared. So p is my square root. And then you take the square root of the last and put it in the last term right there. So that p squared minus 49 turns into p plus 7 times p minus 7. All right, now remember, these are in different orders. I've got a p minus 7 up here, and I've got a 7 minus p down here. It's just kind of like this, or x minus 4, 4 minus x. Same type of thing. Remember, instead of dividing to 1, this time they divide to -1. So your answer here is just, we usually write our monomials first. So -1 times p plus 7 is what you want to write as your answer. If you drop the 1, you're okay too. You could just write the negative and then p plus 7 right there. And that is a fantastic answer as well.